intro. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, I should say. My name is Brett Augustine. I'm a recovery business advisor for North Central Texas Small Business Development Centers. We are a leading provider for assistance for small businesses. We are grant funded, which allows us to bring this and many other types of training and development for small business owners at no cost to you. Today, we're going to be with Ashley Cook, who's going to talk to us a little about how to maximize your content marketing. If you would please, just a couple of notes, put it in the chat room if you have any questions, and that way we can get to them at the end. That way we can get through her presentation. And if you have any questions as we go, we'll get to all of those at whenever she's ready to receive questions. And if you don't know Ashley Cook, she has 13 years sales, marketing, and analytics experience, and now she's shifted into serving small business owners. She's also developed copy for multi-million-dollar brands, social media influencers, and small startups. She's a copywriter as well as a copy coach. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome one and only Miss Ashley Cook.
Thank you, Brett. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. And I feel like I say this every time. I'm so excited to talk about this topic. It's one of my favorites, but this one really is near and dear to my heart because as a fellow small business owner, I know how precious time is and how short it is and how we want to be able to make the most use of our time. So let me share my screen and we'll go ahead and jump in and focus in on how I can help you do that today. So today is all around how to maximize your content marketing. And at the tail end, we're also going to go into some really practical tips on how you can craft killer headlines so that people will read your content or they'll read your headline and they won't be able to resist just keeping on reading. So what we're going to cover today is I'm going to ground us in what is content marketing, because there is actually a little bit of confusion on what it is and what it isn't. Then we'll go into how to make your content actually work for you. How can you work smarter, not harder, when it comes to creating your content in your super busy day. Then how to get 1 month of content from one blog. It's absolutely possible. I'm going to show you step by step how you can do that. And then we'll wrap it up with creating those powerful hooks that your readers just can't resist. So first, I want to ground us in what is content marketing. So at its heart, content marketing is where you're sharing material online that will draw in, engage, and keep readers in, that it'll retain them so that they can learn more about you and what you offer so that they'll eventually buy your products and services. So that's a big old long definition. So we'll go ahead and break it down a little bit further into what it is, what it isn't. So first, what content marketing is not. So content marketing is not just creating content for the sake of it. And I know I've been guilty of doing this too. And feel free, drop it in the comments if you've done this so I can feel like I'm in good company. And I'm pretty sure I am, because I haven't met a business owner who hasn't done this, where they think, oh, I got to send out that email. Oh, I got to do a social post because I haven't posted in 2 weeks. And you just get something out just for the sake of hitting publish or just to show that your social media account is not like inactive. But content marketing is actually not doing that. It's also not directly promoting your goods. So there is a difference between content and copy, and content is a little bit of a different beast than writing copy. So writing copy is you're persuading people to take an action. That can include like you're buying your product, signing up for a consult, something that leads them to that direct purchase. Content marketing is a little bit of a different animal. And then also content marketing is not keeping it to others' platforms. What do I mean by that? Content marketing is not just posting on social media for people to comment or share your post. So what do I mean by that? Well, then we shift into what is content marketing. It is thoughtful and strategic. So instead of just posting for the sake of posting, you're actually being thoughtful in what it is that you're writing. So you're creating your material with a goal in mind. And that goal is usually to drive them to your website, to something that you have on your site, whether it's your blog or maybe it's your services, or maybe it's a podcast that you've created or a YouTube channel you've created. something that that will drive them to learn more about you and put them kind of more in your sphere. Content marketing is also, it's really around creating and sharing that free material. So I'll give some examples in a minute of how that looks and why it is you want to create some free material for your potential customers or your readers. And then finally, it's what attracts potential customers that will ultimately lead to them converting and becoming an actual client. So so one example of that is the difference between posting on social media and just having only posting content where people are just staying on Instagram or Facebook versus you're writing something that says, hey, I just, to learn more about it, go check out this blog I wrote. The blog is a free content, but you're driving people off of the platforms to go and look. Or it could be an email in their inbox that says, hey, just check out this new podcast I put together, and here's some of the things that it touches on. And then that drives them to your actual podcast. So the goal of that is it gets them into the area where you can talk more about your products and services so that then they can get to know what you do more, build that like and trust factor with you, and then ultimately click buy or want to consume your products in some way. So some examples of content that are out there. So we talked about emails. Those can be just the short emails that you send out. It can be fuller newsletters where you're informing people of things that are going on in your business, or some interesting facts, or maybe like fall themed recipes. By the way, happy fall. We are now officially in fall, and in North Texas, it is delightfully fall right now. So that's my favorite time of year. But that's when you'll probably start seeing a lot of these emails pop into your inbox, and you may even want to, as a business owner yourself, start creating some of those nice, cozy, sipping a piping hot cup of hot cocoa kind of emails. That is an example of content marketing, emails or newsletters. Blogs, we mentioned blogs. Those are a very popular way to create content and to offer value for your readers. And you'll see in a little bit how one properly structured blog can build out your entire month of content. So I'll go into how you can create all these types of content on your screen just from one properly structured blog. Social posts are another one. Now, I know I was harping on like just posting for the sake of posting, or posting for to keep and not driving people away from the platform. There is a little bit of a nuance to this, and it ties into the algorithms, which I know is like the dreaded word for social media, because they feel like they're always changing. We never know what to do with them or how to interact within them. But when you think about creating content on social media, there are times where you want to point people to your blog, to your podcast, to your website. But there are some ways you want to be careful to not do that all the time, because platforms like Facebook and Instagram or LinkedIn, their goal is to keep people within their platform. So it's about having that balance and mixing up those posts for sure, and not always driving people off that platform, because Facebook could end up starting to like not show your post to as many people. Then articles, that's similar to blogs, but think like printed magazines where you're writing. Like we have a local magazine here where you can, it's reading informative, like how to de-stress during the holidays. So it's not outright selling something, but it's giving you some really great value on how to like stay calm and cool through the holidays. But but then you see who wrote it, and then you're like, oh, that was really helpful. I'm going to go check out that person. That's an example of content marketing in like a printed piece. And then podcast and videos, those are your audio and visual ways of still offering value. Think about the podcast you listen to and what you're drawn to. And it's kind of that same content, but now you're in the seat of creating the podcast. So when you think about properly implementing content marketing in your business, what are the benefits? Why should you care about creating free content? Why should you care about sharing this out with potential customers, current customers, your target audience? There are three main reasons why. The first one is that it shows that you are an expert in what you do. It positions you as a credible authority in your field because of the type of value that you're offering. What you're offering is unique to your business and the problems that you are helping your target audience solve. So the content you're creating helps to position you in that way and in an increasingly stronger way. So the more they see that, the more credibility gets built, the more trust gets built, the more they'll see you as that go-to expert. The second benefit is it boosts awareness of your brand or of your service. So the more content that you are creating out there, the more that people will recognize you, recognize what you offer. I think of here in our community, there's a local baker, and she makes like the best Rice Krispie treats I've ever had. Like they're mouth watering, they're chewy, they're not dry, they're just so good. But I never heard of her until we had like a community market. But then once I had like one point of contact with her, I just felt like I started seeing her everywhere, like every event, all in our magazines, on Facebook. It was just like it just took that one point of me coming in contact with her before I started seeing her, and now I just can't stop thinking about her cinnamon rolls. So that's a true story. So when you start putting out content, you never know who's going to see it at what given point. But building that brand awareness helps you to achieve the third thing on this list, which is it keeps you top of mind with your target audience. So it's easy to think of like an example with a baker because we're all driven by like this taste and smell kind of thing. And especially on like cool mornings like today, you just want something like rich and maybe decadent and warm. But it also works for other agencies and other industries like financial planning. So I'm terrible at, I'm not, well, I won't say, no, I'm terrible. It's just because I don't know about financial planning and, 401ks and IRAs and retirement planning. Like I know it's important, but I don't know anything about it. But my financial planner will send me regular emails hitting at different topics. And so it's like, oh, when I see his emails, I think, okay, well, I didn't know he could do that. Or, oh, I never thought about that. Or, oh, I need to schedule a time to come in and see him. So the same thing works if you're a chiropractor. Whenever you're sending out regular communications, let's say emails, if you're sending out regular emails to your patients, they're going to remember, oh, I need to go and book an appointment and come in for an adjustment. Because when it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And in those emails and blogs and posts, all those are helpful ways to remind us without having to do for the hard sell. So a lot of the content marketing is a way to keep you top of mind, front and center, without having to always feel salesy or, and none of us want to feel salesy. So the thing though is, when you think about all the different kinds of content marketing there are out there, you might be thinking, but oh my gosh, this is a lot and I don't have a lot of time. So what do I do? Right? So the question then becomes, how can you start to make your content work for you? And to do that, I wanted to first remind you about the SBDC and to encourage you to lean on the experts at the North Central Texas SBDC. They are an amazing group of people who are connected to a wealth of resources that can help you solve your business problems. So if you're short on time and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get all this done, you can call them and set up, no cost confidential advising. You can plug into their resources and trainings like this one today to get you going. Because as a business owner, you don't have enough time to be stuck. So they're a great resource to lean into. So you can visit their website on the screen. You can give them a call. The number is there as well. And you can get plugged into their trainings and their resources. So what I want to do also is offer you some two powerful ways that you can start to maximize your content marketing, things that you can start doing today. And it's actually perfect timing because we're like coming towards the end of the month. And so by the time the next month starts, if you start putting this together here over the next week or week and a half, you could have your entire month of October already all taken care of from a content perspective. So the first step is going to be around how do you tie it together? And then the second one is how do you batch create your content? So let's dive into the tie it together piece. First, let me check and see if there are any questions. Okay, no questions yet. So if you have any questions along the way, please absolutely drop them in and I'll either answer them at a point along the presentation or I'll cover them at the end. But what I'm going to dive into now is how you can get one month of content from one properly structured blog. It is possible. And are you ready to see how? All right. I'm assuming everyone is saying, yes, Ashley. All right. So the first one is, so what we're going to do is break it down into one blog and how one blog can get you one podcast topic, 10 social media posts, 5 Facebook or Instagram lives, wherever you go live, and 4 emails. That, and you are absolutely more than welcome to do more than that. You can adjust that however you want, but the exercise I'm going to show you helps you to get those. So the first is write a list-based blog. And I dare you to say that 10 times fast because I cannot. This is what is a list-based blog? So this, you've seen them before. You've probably clicked into them before because they're one of the more popular types of blogs out there. They're super easy to skim. They're easy to write because it's list-based and you can break it down really easily. So I just put some examples of what a list-based blog is. So, 10 shockingly simple ways to plan for your retirement, 7 tips to bust clutter and have your dream closet, 13 Michelin star recipes that you can make in 30 minutes or less. That's the one that I want because I don't want to be in the kitchen a lot, but I want my stuff to be good. So these are blogs that you can create that are going to be broken down into several points. And whenever you're creating these, go for, and I know it's going to be weird, but go for an odd number. There's something psychologically that happens that we as people are drawn more to odd numbers than we are even numbers. So and I know I put 10 up there as an example, but whenever you can, try to shoot for 7, 9, 13, something like that. Now, when you're creating your list-based blog for the purposes of a whole month of content, try to do at least 5 or 7 items in your list, just so that whenever we get to your other content, you'll have some more stuff to pull from. So you'll see more about that in just a second. All right, so once you write your list-based blog, there are some other tips I want to give you to help keep you going on this. So when you're writing your blog, shoot for at least 1,000 words. And I know that can feel like a ton. When I first started out blogging, I was like, how in the world am I going to write 1,000 words? So this is where having the list-based blog, I got to figure out a different way to say that because that is tongue twisting. This is where it'll really it'll save your bacon, because you can take 1,000 words, save maybe 100 words for your intro, 100 words for your conclusion, and then divide up the 800 other words for your other points in there. And then that starts to break it down. So create an outline and just plan on kind of dividing it out that way. And it becomes a lot more manageable to write, like if we use the example of how to clutter bust your closet, it's so much easier to write on one step of that, to do 100 words on that, than it is to think oh, I got to write 100 or 1,000 word beast. Now, another reason why it's really helpful to have blogs that are longer is not just necessarily for this exercise, but it also helps with your search engine optimization. So drop in the comments if you currently do blogging or if you've blogged before. I'd be curious to know who in here has a flair for the blogs. But when you think about blogging as it relates to helping actually build your visibility on your website, how that helps from a search engine optimization standpoint is the more people that read your blog, the more people that are driven to your website, Google starts to see you and view you as a more credible authority and relevant. So as people start to enter in different keywords and look for you or look for things that your services or your goods, they're gonna as Google starts to view you as more relevant, you're gonna start inching your way up in the Google rankings up to that highly coveted first page, right? So blogging is a powerful way to do that, because you're adding high value, very value rich content to your readers, and the longer the better. So why words matter is when Google crawls through what they'll do is to assign your relevancy. They will crawl through your website and it'll assign a relevancy based upon the type of content that you have, right? So if you only have a couple hundred words on a page, the Google crawlers may not be able to have, they may not be able to distinguish the level of value or relevancy in that page. They just simply won't have enough to crawl through. So when you're writing a blog, shoot for about 1,000 words. That's the bare minimum. Some studies say, go to 2,000, 3,000 plus words. And at that point, it's that's a lot, right? And you can absolutely do that, but just plan to shoot for about 1,000 words. Another way that helps to write those out, and I do this, I've actually started doing this all the time, or for most of my blogging now is I'll just hop on the treadmill or I'll go for a walk and I'll voice text it into my phone. Because I find that if I sit down and write, like if I sit down and type at a keyboard, and I know this is really ironic given that I'm a copywriter, sometimes I do still get stuck in my head. So getting out and walking, and it not only allows you to get your exercise in for the day, but it gets you conversational and gets you talking more and more about your blog. So you can actually write your entire blog draft just in a 30, 45 minute walk, just depending on how long your blog is. So that's all I'll say on the length piece. But the second really important tip, and this is such an important one that you don't want to overlook, is the use of conversational language and you language. So why does this matter? Why does it matter that we write how we speak? Because well, number of reasons. One, people are wanting to read content quickly. So we're big skimmers. We don't have a long attention spans anymore. And so to do that, you want to have material that is easy and quick to digest. So shoot for that middle school range. I wrote an email for a client that was and I was so proud. And it was so funny because I was so proud that I hit like first grade reading level. And I'm like, I never thought I would know, like my grad school professors would just like cringe if they knew I was writing like first grade reading level. But it and you don't shoot for necessarily first grade, but I was just really excited that like I could do that. And I don't know why, like, anyways. So you want to shoot for middle school, and probably like 5th to 7th grade is like that zone you want to be in, but I would shoot for 5th or 6th grade. And what that does is it helps you to get out of your jargon, because as the expert in what you do, you have industry terminology that the normal everyday person may not be familiar with. So one way to gut check this is if you had to explain what you do to like your middle school neighbor, or your 5th grade niece, or someone that is that age, just picture them whenever you're writing, so that you can start using some of that language. This is also where voice texting or voice dictating your material can really help, because somehow whenever we sit down at the keyboard, we think like we just automatically go into what our academic training is, right? Think back to high school when you wrote research papers and you had to write in these very strict grammar, highly formal, very objective, non-emotional kind of content that you were writing. But whenever it comes to creating your content for social media or for emails or for blogs, like that won't fly. Not many people are going to hang with a very academic style writing. So the voice dictating is a very powerful way to get you out of that, to help you break free from that and write in a more conversational tone. Now, why you want to use you language is because all of your content and all of your copy is like having a conversation with your perfect target audience. So you're not writing to the masses, you're writing to one person. So like, I'm not talking to a whole bunch of people right now. I'm just talking to you. Yes, you. So when I'm writing my content, I'm going to be using that you language, because it helps them to feel like they're the one that you're talking to, that you're not just writing to a general third person, they're talking to me. And that's a really powerful way psychologically to start building that relationship through just the written word. All right, we had a question about blogs. So are fewer long blogs better than many shorter blog posts? Ooh, that's a good question. So I think so. If you're going to go the longer route, what I typically recommend my clients do is having like a minimum of 2,000 word blog post a month. That would probably be like the bare minimum. I think what you could do I lean towards fewer longer blogs. I do have some clients who want shorter ones, and and I've done the research and shown them the studies that from a Google perspective, from a reader perspective, longer is better. And a lot of times we think, well, we don't have a long attention spans, we don't have a ton of time, why would people want to read through 1,000 word blog or a 2,000 word blog? But the reality is, when you look at your readers, when you think about it from a readability standpoint, you have three main audiences that you're writing to. You have the in-depth reader, that's the person who's going to pore over every word. You have the skimmer, who is just going to hit those high notes, your bulleted, text, your italicized text, hitting those keywords and phrases. List-based blogs are wonderful for them because then they can just skim what those 7, 9, or 13 whatever things are. And then you have Google, which is for your search engine optimization. But when you have like a skimmer who is reading, which a lot of us are skimmers, and even if we're preliminary skimmers and we're like, okay, I want to see what this is about to see if it's worth my time to read into, you want to make sure that they are feeling like they're getting enough value from your content. So, I don't know that there's necessarily a right or wrong in terms of, fewer long blogs versus shorter, more frequent ones. As much as I would look at how are you able to add the most value to your reader. And a lot of times, if you're writing the really short ones, there's just not a lot of time to communicate what you want to communicate for that particular topic. So if you are concerned about like sitting down and writing 1,000-word blog or like a longer blog, what you can do is you can actually, if you, instead of doing the more frequent ones, you could still approach it like, well, I'm going to write micro blogs, but maybe choose a theme and say, like, I'm going to write 3 shorter blogs on this one theme, and then space that out over a period of time, so that you're not sitting down to crank one out at like all 3 out at once. And then you could always join those together. That could be one way to do the shorter blog approach, but then still package it as a longer blog, for your website. That's one little workaround on that. All right, next is keep your sentences and your paragraphs short. This has to do with the readability. A lot of times, and I see this so often when business owners are writing copy or they're writing their content, it's tempting for the sentences to feel like either one long run-on, or they're trying to cram too much in one sentence. So it's not uncommon for me to see copy that or content that has, like a sentence that's like 4 lines long. The problem with that is that becomes really difficult for you can track it in your mind as you're writing it, but when your reader is reading it, it's really easy to lose track on that. So, and it makes it really difficult and loses that conversational edge. So don't be afraid to break it up into short sentences. So you want to make sure that your sentences are simple, they're succinct, and a lot of times the easy answer is you just put a period or a couple periods in that one long sentence. Now, the reason why you want to keep your paragraph short has to do with this is something that you'll want to check on any of your content, is how it looks on mobile versus desktop. So when you're writing a paragraph, it sure looks an awful lot shorter on your computer than it does on your mobile phone. So before you go and blog, always do the double check on how it's going to look on your cell phone. And if you start to see like a really long chunk of paragraph, see where you can break it into shorter ones. Same for social media. So like blogs, you can have a little bit longer, of a paragraph, like, 4 or 5 lines long is fine for a paragraph on a blog. But if you put that same text into a social post, it's going to look a lot longer. So you want to make sure, social posts may be like 3 lines or 4 lines. And that just helps with the readability of your content and keeps people engaged in reading. Because if it's too much work for your reader, you run the risk of them bailing. All right, this one is for those who just have no idea what they want to write about, and they're stuck, and it feels like you're just trying to pull ideas from the air, and you're like, I don't know, what do my readers care about? Like, what am I going to write about? Do not be afraid to get inspiration from other blogs. So find someone else that does something similar to what you do, or someone that you look up to, and check out what they're writing about. See if you can do your own cool creative spin on that topic. You can go into different Facebook groups and see like that are related to what you do. So let's say you are, let's do the financial planner, example. Let's say that or like an insurance. Let's do insurance. You're an insurance provider and you're not sure what what would you blog about? Like you sell insurance, right? But you actually do so much more than that. You could go into different insurance agents' Facebook pages, maybe some at the same company or different companies, different locations, and get ideas on what they're writing about. You can also go into Google reviews or check Q&As or go on social posts and read through comments just to spark ideas on different content you can write. And pretty soon you can come up with an awesome list of blog topics, like, the top 9 things to look for when buying car insurance for your teenager, or I think of like the spring in Texas where the whole state shut down because of the weather. You could have a blog that is around, how to winterproof your home and reduce damage claims, something like that. But you can get a lot of that inspiration just from seeing what other people are doing, and then that gets the wheels turning for you to do on your own. And definitely don't forget to proofread. So this is one where you'll want to make sure and run them through tools like Grammarly or Hemingway app to check your readability, check your grammar. You want to make sure it's polished, because the content that you put out reflects your brand and reflects who you are. So you want to make sure that that you're not getting dinged in the eyes of your reader for having copy that is full of errors. All right, so now we're going to get back to some tips on writing a blog. So now that you kind of know the properly kind of structured blog, so using the list-based one, I'm going to walk through on how to create these other pieces of content from that one blog. So the podcast piece this is one, I didn't have a slide on this, but I wanted to touch on it before we get to the others, because what you can do from one blog, it's fairly simple to create a podcast topic similar to that. You don't have to regurgitate all the exact content, but what you can do is take your concept and spin it into a podcast. So if we use that example of how to bust clutter and get your dream closet, you could do a podcast on, and let's say that blog provides, like the 7 tips on how to get rid of clutter so you can get that dream closet. Maybe your podcast is around why it's so hard to get rid of clutter. Maybe what are the barriers? What keeps us holding on to stuff? If your audience is specifically for moms, why is it hard for moms to let go of clutter for their kids? Maybe they're preparing for any scenario, or maybe they're really attached to their baby's clothes and their babies aren't babies anymore. You could create a podcast that ties into the why behind that blog is necessary. So you can come up with a bunch of different ideas that are related to that without having to completely regurgitate it. And also, that podcast is an awesome way to then say, hey, I wrote some more specific tips on how to start busting up that clutter. If you find yourself being in that situation, I'll drop that link in the show notes, and that's one way that you can tie those two together. So now I'm going to go into how do you create your social posts, your lives, and your emails off of this one blog. All right, this involves breaking up your blog. So every item in the list that you've created, whether it's the 9 or the 11 or 5 things in your list, each one of those things has now become a micro topic. And those micro topics will now be the topic or the theme for your other types of copy. So how does that look? So for social post, what you can do is to get your 10 social posts for that month, kind of on that blog topic. Your first post can be a teaser post about the upcoming blog. So let's say if it's that clutter busting one, you can write something that ties into what keeps people from how people are overwhelmed with clutter. You can create a question that gets people kind of engaged. You can talk about your own, clutter busting journey, but really the purpose of that first post is to create that teaser that you have a blog coming up. So you can end your post with saying, I'm going to be publishing something really soon, or I have a blog dropping here in a couple days that hits on this very topic. Let me know if you want in on it when it posts. And so by saying something like that or ending it with that, you're giving a call to action in your post, but you're also asking for people to drop in their comments, and you can shoot them those links or that link whenever it goes live. Whenever you create your post, you can tag them in that post. But that way you start to kind of get the engagement on your social media. And then what you can do for posts 2 through 8, or however many is in your list, you can create one post per topic. So for each of those micro topics can then become a post, and you can create just a few sentences that go into that one particular area. And each one you can drive them to the blog, or you can just have it be a standalone post, or you can use it to to create questions or generate some kind of engagement. You can create quotes from that whatever that micro topic is. Maybe you have a really cool quote that you want to share. You can create those quote cards in Canva, which is an awesome free tool if you haven't used it yet. I highly recommend signing up for Canva, because you can design all those beautiful social media posts and a whole slew of other things. I could just like rabbit trail down into Canva. So you have like your post 2 through 8, and then like your post 9, you could change it up by creating a poll or a question that's related to your blog topic. And that could be, what do you think causes you the most issues with cleaning out your closet? And, you have your options listed and they can vote on them, or you can leave it as kind of an open question. But that's another one to get engagement, where you're not just providing value, you're actually asking for input back. And then the post 10, again, you can let them know the blog is up, and it's you can kind of do more of a general holistic type of post around what this blog covers. So that's one way that you can get your blogs to stretch out across 10 different social media posts, and you can stagger those 2 to 3 a week for the entire month, and have them to connect back into your blog. You can also have these social posts. If you have a podcast, you can have them tied to your podcast. You can also recommend that they go to your site and join your email list, so then they'll get your emails. You can have some fun and creativity with the social post and how you end them, but using those micro topics is kind of that theme. All right. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in, and then I'll take a pause and answer those. So, here. What if you have a product or service that a client would only need once every couple of years? How do you keep them engaged with your business topic if you're back of mind for that long between purchases? So if they only need a service or product every couple of years, is there an that's a great question, by the way, because I think of like purchase cycle, and you have there's such different purchase cycles. So I think of what's like the maintenance, something that they do in between. So like, what if I'm trying to think of an example of one that's the first thing that popped to mind was like if you offer like mammograms, because I know that those can be yearly, or depending on your age, every couple of years. But what can you do to optimize your health in between the mammograms? What are some of those lifestyle things? If it's a product, I'm trying to think of a product that would be every couple of years. I'm drawing blanks on one, but my mind goes to what are the problems that you're helping your client or your client solve with that product or service, and what are some of the other ways that you could support them in that. So like with the mammogram, women are wanting to ensure that they have optimal breast health. So you are going to, they have that one service, but in between that, maybe they're doing, so how do you do self-checks? How do you support someone in your family who found a lump or may test positive for like breast cancer? How do you, if you treat women who have had breast cancer and you offer this service, maybe it's, like post-op care, or, powerful reasons to remember to do, to schedule your mammogram. There's a number of topics that you can hit at, even if they're only doing those services every year or two, that can help support them in between, so that they don't forget to come in and come back to you every year or two to get those, to get that scheduled or to make that purchase. Same with products. If there's certain, like medical, like injections or something that I write for a lot of health and wellness, so my mind is immediately shooting to that world. But there are some procedures that are only, every year or two. But there's maintenance stuff that you can do in between. So, translate that to your business. So I guess another one would be if you use the financial planner or a health insurance or like your insurance. You're only getting maybe a review every year of your insurance policy, but what does life look like in between that? So if you have a car, like the importance of maintaining your car, for your home, like how to keep your home from falling apart so that you don't have to call insurance, or what are those important questions to ask whenever you do need to lean on. So look for those different touch points related to your topic. That's a wonderful question. All right, so the next area is how do you do your lives? So lives are a fun thing because they tend to really they freak people out, and they make all of us nervous, right? There's something that's so powerful about that little dot that you're staring into and having to talk to, right? And we want to be confident. We want to come across as the expert in what we do, but you're talking to a dot. And how do I have a conversation with a dot? So there's some ways to overcome that. And part of that is really being clear on what you're talking about. So kind of like this presentation here, you have your comments prepared, you have the things you're going to want to talk about. In this case, it's your blog. And the best thing about lives is they don't have to be long. They can be a couple minutes. You can keep them under 5 minutes, and that's totally fine. You can even do practice runs. So one little cheat that I picked up in one of my my coaching programs is you can actually do the live, set the privacy to just you, do the live, go back and watch it. If you feel like it was pretty good, like 70 to 80% there, just change the privacy setting to where it's visible for everybody. And then that way people will be able to go in and view your live on your timeline without actually having to be live, but they'll see that you went live. That's one little confidence cheat if you're nervous about hitting live on the camera. And sometimes it's okay if it takes 3 or 4 times. I've gone on to do lives before and I've had to restart them because I just fumble over my words. And then I realized, you know what? Fumble. It's okay, because it shows that you're human. It shows that that you're real, and the more you do it, the better it'll get. But when it comes to doing your lives for your micro topics, one way that you can structure those would be to for your first live, talk about this core problem that the blog addresses. So the clutter busting, what is the core issue that you see with people letting go, if it's moms letting go of their clutter. And then at the end of that live, you can add in a teaser that you have a blog coming up that's going to drop some powerful tips and great value on how you can actually start to release some of the things that you're holding on to. That can be your first live, is to do that kind of teaser. And then, your lives 2 through 5 can be on one of the micro topics from your blog that you're most excited to talk about. So you can include Q&A if you want. If you're doing the little cheat, maybe not Q&A. One way to incorporate that in, if you're doing it like a private recording before you post it out to everybody, you can say some common questions that my clients ask about this are, whatever, and then here's what I tell them. And then at the end, you can drive them to your website to read your blog. You can speak that URL and have them go to that. So that's one way to finally put to rest the question of, what do I talk about when I go live? And you'll be amazed at how quickly that time goes. All right, next are your emails. So these are emails or newsletters that you can write to keep in touch. So this would be you sending out an email once a week, kind of on this greater theme of your blog topic. And this you can change up to where one email is about that topic in general, or maybe it's a subsection of your larger newsletter. It's kind of up to you and what you want. But email 1 would, again, similar to the live, touch on the problem that your blog's addressing. You could end it with a question. If it's just a standalone email, end it with a question about the topic. Say, hit reply. I'd love to hear what you have to say. That encourages them to have that engagement. The second email is around, the second and third email are around, actually the rest of them are around sharing different micro topics, but the second email could be directing them to the blog, giving them that link. The third one, you could still have that link in there to your blog, but maybe you bring in a testimonial or a review from a happy client. So you're hitting at this problem that they're having, but then you're saying, here's how I've helped someone overcome this, and here's, you start getting that social proof and that credibility in there of someone who has worked with you, and that's a subtle way of being able to show how you're the go-to person to help solve the problem without coming across as salesy or asking for, for the sale, kind of in a direct way. And then the last one is you could share that another micro topic and then connect it into your services. That could be a link to your services page. That could be a, if this is something you're struggling with, I'd love to hop on a call with you and kind of talk through what you're going through and what your goals are. To do that, just hit reply to this email and let them know how to set that, or whatever that call to action is. So that's a simple way that you can start crafting out those emails. All right, so now I want to talk to you a little bit about, now that you've tied it all together, you have all this kind of mapped out of how to turn one blog into a whole month of content. Now, how do you do it efficiently? Because it can still feel like a lot. So I want to talk about Batchwork, and the delicious cookies on the screen are there for a reason. So batch working is a really powerful way to do more in less time. So think about whenever you are baking cookies or those like delicious blueberry muffins. How are you doing it? You're not baking one cookie at a time and like pulling it and pulling it out, or one muffin at a time. That would take forever. It doesn't make sense. To do that, what you do is you do them a dozen at a time. While the cookies, 1 dozen is in the oven, you're preparing the next one, and then you pull those out and you put the new tray in. The same concept works with batching your content as well. And I know it may sound crazy, but it does work. So I want to talk through a couple of different ways you can kind of go about batching your work. Essentially, what batching is when it comes to content creation is setting aside a specific amount of time to get one thing done, to focus on it exclusively. So instead of writing your emails once a week and having to get into that zone 4 times a month, or 10 times for your social post or 5 times for your lives, you're getting all of that mapped out in one big chunk while you're in the zone. So there's a couple of different ways that you can go about batch working, and it's really around finding what works best for you. And I've seen people do it a number of different ways. So you can batch by the day. So batching by the day is like when you reserve, like you block off Monday afternoon to knock it out. And maybe you reserve Monday afternoon for for this content creation. Maybe Tuesday afternoon is for admin work. Wednesday afternoon is for something else. So you can batch it by the day. The next one is batching it by hour. So if you're not like based upon your business model and your schedule, maybe by the day doesn't work, but maybe between the hours of 10 to 11 every day, you're able to work on this one thing. So 5 days a week, you're devoting 1 hour from 10 to 11. That's batching by the hour. And then you could also batch by project. So when it comes to creating your content, that would be one way to hone in that focus, in because it's all going to be around one blog, is to just like nail it, like just get it done in one big chunk, at least draft it out in one big chunk. So those are 3 different ways that you can go about batching your content. But one thing I do like to recommend when you're batching, and I don't know why it works, but it does, is to set a timer to keep you on pace, because there's something that happens psychologically that forces you to move forward when you know that you have a timer and a deadline kind of imposed on yourself. So if you're creating for your month content, so let's say you're going to do all of October's content, you think through that blog, you want to map out your emails or your social posts, set aside over this next week and a half, set aside an afternoon where you can just nail all that, like just get it all out. And you can at least get the maybe topics mapped out would be step 1. Step 2 would be to start drafting each little bit of it. And then if you can get that drafted in one setting, that's awesome, because then you can refine it throughout the month, or refine it in another setting when your brain feels a little bit fresher. So now I'm going to change into how do you actually get people to read what you write. So it's one thing to actually write it. It's another thing to get people to read it. So first I'm going to pause here and see if anyone has any questions before we transition to this last piece of training. So let me take a look and see.
Not seeing any right now that you haven't already answered, Ashley. However, it is really great information, but please quit putting cookies and talking about the Rice Krispie treats. You're killing me.
I know you can see where my heart is right now. It's with the baked goods.
It's okay. All good. We're going to get on the hook now.
I know I went to the dentist yesterday and they had the Great British Bake Off playing, and I was like, oh, this is brutal because one, it's all sweets, and two, I'm at the dentist. So it was this really big conflict like within me. But I wanted to get to a bakery as soon as possible afterwards. So we'll change analogies and go to fishing and talk about hooks. So it won't be as delicious as Rice Krispie treats and cookies, but it is still just as important. So how do you get people to actually read what you write? And this ties into uh, creating that hook, that irresistible hook that grabs people, whether it's the beginning of a social media post, whether it is, the title of your blog or an email subject line. So the goal of your headlines, the goal of your email subject lines, the goal of that first line in your social media post is all around getting people to keep on reading. That's that's the sole purpose of it, is to generate enough curiosity and enough intrigue to keep them reading on. There is a excuse me, a famous copywriter and like marketing guru named David Ogilvy, and I always quote this saying because it's just such an important. It shows the importance of your headline. He says that on average, 5 times as many people will read the headline as the body of copy. And when you've written your headline, you've spent 80 cents out on the dollar. So it's worth taking the time to get your headline in order and to spend time optimizing it. So what I like to do when I start writing content is I'll start with a working headline. Don't worry about optimizing it right from the beginning. Because sometimes depending on the evolution of what you write, the headline may need to be tweaked a little bit. So just plop a working headline at the top, and we can worry about optimizing it when it's done. So what I want to do is talk through, there are a whole bunch of different ways that you can go about writing a hook, or a headline or a subject line. I want to share with you 5 different ways that you can do that, so you can start practicing that in your own content. So again, I did want to remind you that if you do get stuck and you do have questions, and you're like, I don't really like these 5, Ashley, I need help in some other ways. Again, reach out to the SBDC because they're here for you. They're wonderful, and I love how they help, their hearts of service to helping you get unstuck and grow your business. So if you do want to hear what those 5 are, then I'm going to go ahead and jump into those. So the first hook is around creating curiosity. So why this works is something happens psychologically when our curiosity is piqued. So what you may have noticed is I've been using the word in your mind or psychologically a lot, because a lot of writing your content and writing your copy has to do with psychology. And it's like Fraser craning your copy kind of thing, where you're wanting to get into the minds and the hearts of your readers, and knowing what it is that draws people in. So curiosity is one way that you can do that. And there's something that happens when you have your curiosity piqued, and you can't help but want to figure out to know what it is and to discover it. So it kind of creates a sort of open loop that in the reader's brain that they can't help but close. So what's an example of a curiosity-based headline or hook? It could be, the clutter busting secrets that the pros won't tell you. Well, it's like, well, I want to know what that is. So they're going to click into that. It could be 11 ways to vacation for free. You won't believe number 9. I've seen that before. I've used that technique before, and it gets people to be like, well, I want to know what number 9 is. So they're going to click in and they're going to see and be like, so those are fun ways to kind of create curiosity with your headlines or your hooks. Again, those are really great. Those examples are great for blogs or for like your social media kind of headline. All right. The second one is around how to. So this one goes back to how experience is often the best teacher. And those who are like smart people will learn from other people's mistakes and not want to repeat them for themselves. So how to headlines speak directly into what your reader is facing. It taps into your reader's problems, what they're struggling with, and it gives them insights or ways that they can like leapfrog to the success. So examples of a how-to would be, again, with the closet, I probably need to organize my closet. That's why I keep giving all these examples. Like I can't even show you my closet right now. So like how to organize your closet without buying anything. A lot of times we think, well, I've got to go and like have it overhauled or buy all these tubs. Well, how do you actually do it without spending a dime? Or, how to vacation for free with no scams or timeshares. That taps into a problem of, people who want to be able to have a wonderful vacation without, having to drop a ton of money or feel like, they're going to get like a sales presentation out of it. So, or how to, powerfully plan for your retirement. I don't know, by the time you're 35 or something that really helps them to understand like how to go about something and how to leapfrog to those results. All right, the third one is negatives. Now this one is one that I recommend using cautiously. So why this one works is that people are drawn to pleasure and they want to avoid pain. So pain is actually a very powerful motivator. So headlines that hit at that pain point and also provide a path out of it are virtually irresistible. Now, the reason why I added the disclaimer is that you want to approach this very cautiously and very ethically. You don't want to play on people's fears, or there's an ethical way kind of going about it, of like recognizing their pain point and providing that way out. So it could be 10 startup mistakes every entrepreneur needs to avoid. So whenever you have an entrepreneur who reads that, they're going to think, oh my gosh, am I doing any of these 10? I want to make sure I'm not doing any of the 10. So they're going to go in and read those. Or 16 nutrition mistakes you're probably making. You can kind of play around with it like that, but you want to have it positioned in a way that provides an answer or a solution for them. All right, this next one's going to be familiar to you because it's what we talked about on creating like your highly structured blog. This is around numbers or lists, and I don't know why, but we just love lists. We love numbers. We love lists. It's just irresistible to see a blog and it's a list-based one, and you're like, oh, because you think, well, I can read that quickly because you know exactly how long it's gonna be, how many main points it's gonna have. People love numbers, and the more specific the number, the better. So don't round up. That could be that 27 Michelin meal recipes you can make in half an hour. That example, it could be 13 clean snacks you can't live without. It could be even, I've seen them where they've gotten really specific of how my client generated $27,643 in her first launch, or something that's like really specific, because like that, those numbers just stand out. So that's another type of headline that you can use. You can use that in your emails and your blogs, your social posts. Numbers and lists are great. And then the last one is around questions. So what happens when I ask you a question? What would you say?
Well, immediately everybody's probably right now thinking, well, after that, we're looking for an answer, right?
See, and you just did it, Brett. You answered. When we're asked a question, you want, yes, Katie, like you want to answer it. Like there's just something.
I failed for it. I failed for it completely.
No, it was wonderful. I'm so glad you did, because that would have been really awkward if no one said anything. There's something that happens when we're asked a question that we cannot resist answering it. And so having a question in your subject line, or having a question in your in your social post or your emails, having a question-based hook is a great way to create that instant engagement with your reader, because they've just something in the brain, it just can't help to like answer it. So an example could be, does your morning routine look like this? Or are you tired of looking at your junky garage? Try this. Those question-based blogs are really great. Are really great for doing that. So after you create, like when you're drafting, you have that working hook, you create your content, and then you can go back and tighten it up by doing that. And I did see a comment in here about, so fine-tuning the headline after completing a blog post is extremely smart. It also lines up with writing a business plan and completing the executive summary at the end as you get more clarity. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's also kind of the same concept of when you have book writers, they'll write the title at the end versus kind of the beginning. You're doing like the executive summary after you do the big presentation. Like I love that example. It's so spot on. So once you are at a point where you've kind of drafted out your headline, then it goes into how do you actually start to optimize it. And I wanted to show y'all a couple of tools real quick that, oops, I hit stop sharing. Let me get back to sharing. I hit the wrong button. Okay. There are a couple of tools here that you can use. They're both by CoSchedule, and they're both free tools. And I'll go ahead and drop them in the comments, and I'll tell you another place where you can get them too. But this one that I just dropped in is for headlines, and this one is for subject lines. And you can enter in your draft into the headline here, and then if you hit on the right side, if you hit analyze, it will actually grade your headline. So if we use this example, that 13 Michelin star one, it'll actually show you the words that make it strong and the words that you could optimize on. And you can keep scrolling down and get a whole bunch of good juicy information on this, but you're going to want to shoot for a 70 plus score rating for your headline. And so if you put it in, I've done them before where I was just playing with different options, and it'll color code it for you. And sometimes it's just tweaking different words. You can also look up headline templates, things like that to help. But it'll grade it. You want to shoot for 70 and above. And then a similar thing for your email subject line. So I don't know if this will, if I put this in, what it'll do. So while that headline may have made a great blog headline, it's not as strong for an email subject line. So this, again, these are both free tools that you can use. It shows how you can, you have how many words do you have in your subject line that will increase your opens, ones that will actually decrease your open rate, and then a number of other measures that that you can look at, plus like how will it actually look in your inbox. So those are two free tools that that are awesome to use for your like when you get to the optimizing round, once you start like working on your kind of finalizing or putting the final tweaks on your headline. So okay, let's see. If starting a brand new business and you have almost no social media audience yet, is it too early to spend lots of time on content marketing that no one will see if you post? Should you wait until you have a certain size audience so that you don't waste your best material when no one's seeing it, or look like no one looks at your content if a potential client browses and sees no one? That's a great question. So one of the ways that you can start to build that presence is by creating content, using hashtags, starting to engage in others. So I would say that you should absolutely still do, still put out content. And not necessarily wait, because a couple of reasons for this. One, you can actually start to build that type of build a history, and it shows that you've been active. It shows that you're engaging, even if other people may not click like. Those are, it's the likes and the comments can be a little bit misleading just from the algorithms alone. I have a business coach who calls them vanity metrics, because you have people who read them who don't actually comment, and those are like the lurkers, the ones who are watching your content, and they may be a potential buyer, or they may be a current buyer, but they're not engaging. They're just watching. They're like the stealth mode social media people. And so having content, it's something that will build momentum over time. So as you're building blogs, those first blogs may not get a ton of eyes on them. Your first, your first chunk of social media posts may not get a ton of likes on them. But being consistent with that is what builds the momentum over time. And you can always, if you've let's say you've written your social post and your blog for October. There's no rule that says a few months from now you can't go back and repurpose that and reword it and reintroduce it to the new eyes that are now on your content in a few months. That's called evergreen content, I think, and it's a way to leverage existing content with with future stuff. So I would say to go ahead and focus on how can you start providing value to your perfect client now and start building that momentum up. Another reason why I recommend that is because there's actually a lot of people think that it's like bad to not have followers or to have people engaging, especially if they're starting out. It can be a really good thing in those early days because it lets you get out all of work out your kinks and get out all your flub ups and start to feel more confident and help you to get more clarity and momentum. So by the time you do get eyes on your material, you've already kind of worked out some of those bugs. So I highly recommend that you start doing it like today. And the people, all that will build and all that will come. I think when I first started my when I first transitioned out of my corporate career and into copywriting and copy coaching, I built an Instagram from like zero. And so I was like, well, how do I get people? So I just started creating content, engaging, responding, sharing, figuring out hashtags, and starting to build that up. And same with my LinkedIn, same with with Facebook. So it's something that just grows over time. So I wouldn't hold on to your best content for your audience, because you can always go and repurpose that a few months down the line. So I know I showed y'all a couple of tools and wanted to have a couple of final slides to wrap up on this, but I do have a one sheet download if you wanted to have the tools that I just showed you, and then I have some other tools as well that are my go-to ones that help me write copy better and faster. And I've showed them on some of the previous trainings before about how to make sure that see what grade level your copy is at, like if it's grade 5 or post grad or whatever, and it can help you pinpoint how to improve your copy. So I put together just a simple checklist. You can go to that site on your screen and download those free tools and some tips. But otherwise, I'll have my contact information up here on the screen. And oh my gosh, I did it again. Sorry. Hold on. I am not strong in technology. I'm just going to say. There. I'm back. I'll drop this in the chat as well. But that is all that I had going. And let me get this. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay. I just dropped that link into the chat if you want to get those, that checklist as well. But you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. You can find me anywhere. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or anything that might be on your mind about your content marketing. And otherwise, I'll turn it back over to.
Well, thank you. And again, that's great. If you have some questions, please go ahead and drop them in or just let us know, and we'll be happy to unmute you and let you ask the question yourself if you prefer. But I appreciate very much today, Ashley, you being edutaining as you were, entertaining and educational. I think that was really good. Anybody have any questions or any comments at the moment? I think you answered almost everybody's questions as we went. And thank you for the links and all of that. Well, while you're thinking about it, if you don't mind, I'm going to share some upcoming things coming up. And hopefully everybody can see what's coming up. September 28th, creating a bankable loan proposal with Rebecca Schultz. Also September 29th, designing your presentation with Lorna Kibbe. And October 4th, Psychology of Selling with Jay Mamie. And Jay is going to be with us for a few times, as you can see, all the way through October 13th, where we have Lorna Kibbe coming back with developing your presentation as well. And we do want to thank a few people, especially Miss Ashley today. For those of you who remember that she is the creator of Lane Copywriting, and she's been absolutely amazing as always. We appreciate her coming in. And if you have any questions, I believe she gave you ways to contact her. If not, please remember we have a survey right after this we'll be sending out. Take 2 minutes to fill it out and let us know the content, what you thought about it, and we'll be happy to send you links back to our websites. If you have any questions, you can go to the SBDC NCTC website, and it will give you all of this information of upcoming things. It's always changing. We want to thank, of course, our Small Business Administration, the SBA, the state of Texas, North Texas SBDC Regional Office, and of course, North Central Texas College, who are our sponsors to make sure that all of this comes to you at no cost to you, and continued education is something nobody can take away from you. So we thank you all for joining us today, and remember, you can get all your resources. I appreciate all of the comments that Ashley made about the SBDC today. We are here to service you and to help your business grow, thrive, and survive. So if you have any questions, please go to our website for more information. Thank you for joining.